All right, here we are. I am Carrie, your empowering educator, and I just wanted to take a couple of minutes and pull some cards for Ostara. I am new to kind of learning the pagan terminology and history of some of the appropriated religious holidays. Right. But learned recently that Ostara is based on, Carrie, your hold on, empowering educator, and there we go. The YouTube just started playing my voice back through to me and I couldn't concentrate. So I'm gonna just say that I learned recently that Ostara is based on an old pagan goddess who I think found an injured bird and turned them into a bunny so they could have a second lease on life. And then the bunny retained the ability to lay eggs from its bird self and laid all these beautiful multicolored eggs for Ostara as a thank you for their gift of life. So I just kind of was like thinking about this idea of giving and receiving and how that can be done in such a nice reciprocal way, without any expectation, without any, I don't want to say without reciprocity, but without like forced reciprocity. So I'm using the Numinous deck, which was my first tarot deck, and I adore it. So you're going to see some of the cards here look a little different than a typical tarot deck. They've renamed the suits as well as some of the major arcana cards, and the court cards are all gender inclusive and expansive characters as opposed to the previously gendered names. So my shtick with the tarot is that I like to do trauma-informed tarot readings. And so all that means is that I am not an expert. You are when it comes to your lived experience. So everything that I say is just an option, and you are encouraged to take what works for you, leave what doesn't, and also really pay attention to any thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations that come up. You want to notice those because those are cues for you. So I started smiling a little bit because 5 cards immediately flipped over just as I was kind of like talking about what I was going to, potentially pull about. And so this usually means to me that like, all right, if the cards are flipping out of the deck before I've even asked a question, like the message is already here. So the first card that came out is the Lover's card, which is number 6 in the major arcana, and just really talks about how we see ourselves reflected in the communities around us. That's not to say we seek external validation, but that once we've done some of the internal work to connect to our own intuition and knowing, then that begins to trickle out into the communities in which we function. So it could be family, could be work, could be hobbies, social communities. But I love the imagery here of sort of everyone laying around in a field of flowers, because like who doesn't want to do that? And they are all kind of equal. No one is a leader. Everyone is sort of drinking in the whole picture. And that's something that I was speaking about with this idea of like giving and receiving, is that usually there's a fluid exchange, not an exchange of fluids. Where, when you are giving something, you're also receiving something, but you're not doing it with expectation, and there aren't any conditions to the giving. The second card that came out was the 5 of Tomes, which is this deck's version of Pentacles. And this card comes up actually a lot for me. I'm noticing it. This is often the card of like despair, but not in like all hope is lost kind of way. What you see in this depiction is a figure out in a snowy evening who has put precious books into a fire to keep warm. And there's a library with its windows lit behind this person. And a lot of times this card comes to me when I don't look around at like all of the options available to me before kind of settling with like what feels most urgent in front of me. And even as I'm saying that out loud, I'm like, fuck, Carrie, okay. And it's interesting because I just read a book about Italian folk magic, and my maternal great grandmother emigrated from Italy, as did my maternal great grandfather. And the author was talking about how like our ancestors are with us all the time, and we just have to like talk to them and they will give us things. And yes, so this is kind of, and again, tomes being like the suit of earth. So like what is practical, what is like tangible in one's life. It's like, well, if we bring in those relationships with those who have departed, those who have the wisdom of the afterlife or the beyond, we may be having, like, we may have more options available to us than we previously thought. And we just need to kind of like look up and look around for all of the answers, as opposed to just focusing on what's right in front of us. We also got the card, the Nine of Candles, which is this deck's version of Wands. And this is actually my personal card for this part of the moon cycle, which is the waning gibbous here on Sunday, April 9th in Sacramento, California. And I really like the depiction of this card. You've got an older figure who is walking with the support of a walker and has sort of 8 candles behind them, and they're holding a 9th candle in front of them. And so you got to get the impression, or I at least get the impression, that this figure is like protecting something, like they are defending something that they have worked really hard for. And I often think about that in terms of like when it comes to reciprocity and also like building relationships with unseen entities, like it can sometimes be, I want to say daunting, but like it's not always easy to like always have those present in your mind. But if we remember that like we've built up until this point, then we're always going to have that available to us. I also get the sense that this figure is looking externally for something to arrive. And with the nines of the minor arcana, we're usually at like an almost point. It's like a tipping point into the next phase of something. And with candles, usually this has to do with like our creativities and passions. So this might be a sense of like not losing what we've built thus far, and making sure that we are keeping our eyes out for everything that is available to us, including the unseen entities that are at work here. We also got the Ace of Tomes, so we're back to the beginning of the suit of Pentacles. And this depiction has the words, grimoire on it, which to me is just a collection of knowledge, right? It's passed down from generations. And a lot of us have this intuition and this inner knowing that we don't always tap into. And I'll just speak for myself, but when it comes to like building community and looking beyond like what's right in front of me to like kind of defend what I've built, sometimes I forget and I like get back into survival mode when all I have to do is kind of tap into that inner wisdom that I have, which is in my body. So this might be an invitation to move our bodies a bit, to go back to square one when it comes to diet or exercise or saving for finances, or maybe even just like cleaning and tidying the house. And I'm just like talking to myself out loud right now because I don't know if anyone's going to see this, but for me, I did say that I might clean the house today as sort of a spring cleaning ritual, which might actually clear some of the stagnant energy that I felt in terms of like building and sustaining community and building and sustaining relationships with my ancestors. So that is what I'm taking that as. And the last card that came out was the Nine of Tomes. So we have 2 nines, first of Candles and then of Tomes, and then we have 3 tomes in this spread. So this is really like a physical, tangible, body-based message for this Ostara about bringing community into our everyday life. And as I'm looking at all of this, I'm kind of seeing the Nine of Tomes as like, again, this figure who is in a stunning library with these gorgeous bromeliads that I always kill because I think I overwater them. But they're just like flourishing and they're surrounded by books and there's natural light and sort of a breeze coming in. And you just get the sense that this figure is like super content in life. Like they have built this library of knowledge that everyone can access. And it is to the benefit of everyone. You know, when I think about a library, it's minimal commitment for like maximal return, right? Like a lot of people can just go to the library and take out a fuck ton of books and they can read them for months. They can pay nominal fees if they are late, or check out audiobooks or, you know, any other resources, which is like pretty invaluable. And we forget how incredible that is to have all that knowledge at our fingertips. But like this figure very clearly knows the value of all of these things and is proud of what they have created. And so what I'm kind of gathering from all of this together is this sense of, in order to build like reciprocal communities, it's important to look around at all of the resources available, make sure that we don't neglect what has already been built and we look forward to what can light our way. We make sure we go back to the beginning, like the basics of what we really want for like ourselves in terms of health and success. Like, how do you define success? That's different than how capitalism defines success. And then how do we, like, when we get to this point of like building something, how do we actually take that all in and celebrate that? Because I know that is something that I personally struggle with. So I do these never knowing if like anyone is out there is going to watch them. But if you do, and if something lands with you, I'd love to hear from you. And if nothing lands from you and I'm just speaking into the void, then like, hey, void, nice to see you. I do these occasionally, and I am building just a sense of how to do what feels good to me in a way that is authentic to all of you. So I like to weave in practical things, humor, as well as some knowledge of the esoteric. So that way it can land for a whole variety of people, because I don't think magic should be gatekept. And I don't think that spirituality and intuition are only accessible to a few. I think they're accessible to everyone. And having accepted and taken on the name of Empowering Educator, it feels like part of my sacred duty in life to empower others to connect to their own intuition so we can make decisions not from this scarcity, urgency, light the book on fire place, but from this, you know, very stable, secure, defending what we have created and really celebrating it, while also going back to the basics of what we really want for ourselves and doing that in a reflective community. So that's what I've got for you today. I am Carrie, and I will see y'all later.